The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Arcane Wonders and tasty Minstrel games. Check out all their awesome titles at arcanewonders.com and playtmg.com.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, it's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes are joined by me, Suzanne Sheldon. We review daily magic games, Villages of Valeria. Then we look back at CGE's Dungeon Petz in our Dukes Double-Take. And finally, we talk about games that exist in the same universe. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Suzanne.
Welcome back to the show, Suzanne. How you doing?
I'm awesome. I was just thinking about the lengths Alex will go to avoid being on the show with me.
Yep, he will leave the country.
At this point, I'm honored. I actually chased somebody out of the continent, and I think that's an accomplishment.
Yes, indeed. Well, this is episode 126. We're naming it It Takes a Village, courtesy of our buddy in the guild, Jimmy DM90. We've got some other runners-up for naming titles at the end of the show, and you can check that all out on our guild. We're guild number 2008 on Board Game Geek, where everyone can join in on the discussion of the upcoming episodes. But that all aside, which is important business, of course, however, I just want to thank you so much for being here. Well, this is the first episode without Alex while he's on his hiatus, and so there is literally not a single other person I would want to get us off on the right foot with than you.
Thank you so much. It really is an honor, and I love you guys, and I love Alex too, and I'm really honored to be part of this one and be part of the show, and I'm so excited to see what you've got lined up. I got a little bit of hint about who else you've got coming on, and I think that, you'll make the best of it for Alex's little hiatus. I think it'll be really entertaining. And if nothing else, this cavalcade of ridiculous people you're marching through here, including myself, will only make us all appreciate Alex more when he's back.
That's good perspective. I like that. Yeah, that's fantastic. So yeah, we do have a lot planned for the next 16 weeks or so. We're going to have a bunch of awesome media personalities like yourself, and we're going to have some local people helping out, kind of switching off every other episode. But this is definitely how I wanted to kick off Alex's hiatus. So thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Let's talk about show business.
Yeah. So if you don't know, we're kind of ramping up production on YouTube. I keep bringing this up, and you're probably all out there saying, okay, Sean, we get it. But a lot of you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel yet. And I know that because we have 350 subscribers, and we have thousands and thousands of downloads for our podcast. So there are very many of you that have not gone over to YouTube, and I would really appreciate it. We're releasing a bunch of these first impression reviews, and there's going to be some other content. Right now, Trick of the Rails is up. Our Fuji Flush review should be up by the time this is out. And then Hero Realms will either be out or out shortly, and we got a bunch more stuff planned. So we're really trying to build that up. So I would really appreciate if everyone just take some time, head on over to YouTube, and subscribe. You're a YouTube expert, Suzanne.
Oh, a consummate professional. Absolutely. Yeah. As if. I'm excited. I'm impressed, Sean. I gotta admit. Oh. I mean, I like to give you guff and
Oh, do you?
I'm just nah. But I was really impressed. I saw your Villages of Valeria video, and you've got that amazing setup. I can't believe you built that, and the production quality is really high. And being a video content producer myself, I know how much work it takes to even just produce my low quality content. So to see you kind of put out these really high quality, well produced videos, kudos to you, man. I'm excited. I think the more people that find out about it and take a look at it, I think that they'll really appreciate what you're trying to do there, and we'll jump on board.
Well, cool. Thank you for saying that. I do appreciate that.
Yeah. Now, you're gonna that's extra, right? I get extra money for being nice to you.
Yeah.
Okay,
no,
okay.
The check's already in the mail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Phew.
So that's fine. No problem.
Okay.
Also, speaking of money, we do have a Patreon account, and if you go to patreon.com/Dukes of Dice, you can go help support the show, and that helps pay for hosting costs for the podcast and upgrading equipment and building a YouTube studio and things like that. one thing I wanted to do was start a Slack app. So Slack is kind of a messaging forum type thing that a lot of businesses use, a lot of collaborative teams use, and it's awesome. So I've sent out invites to all of our Patreon members so they can join this. So it's kind of like its own Patreon guild, which is pretty cool. And we've got I'd say about half of our patrons are currently on it, and we've been chatting up for the last week. So if you're a patron and you haven't signed up yet, definitely go sign up. You should have the invite. If not, send me a message and let me know that you didn't get it for whatever reason. If you haven't joined, it's another benefit to becoming a patron. So definitely go check that out.
Awesome. I use Slack for work a lot, so I think that it's really a great chat app.
It's really cool. I really enjoy it. There's like different channels. So we have one for our YouTube Q&As, we have one for trades, we have one for recent plays, and it's just expanding. So it's been really cool in like 3 days now. We've had Slack up for like 3 or 4 days, and it's already kind of blowing up into this cool little community.
You know, the most important feature of Slack is, though, right?
What's that?
You can just put whack Giphy and any word, and it'll pull in a random GIF that's tagged with that label. It leads to some interesting dialogue.
Okay. All right. I'll have to check that out for sure.
Go.
So this is the second or third contest in a row that we are ending the day after we're recording. So we are giving away a copy of Great Western Trail from our friends over at Stronghold Games. But the contest, is, like I said, is ending the day after we're recording. So congratulations to
Jeremy Scrodla, who is at Stan Manley on Twitter.
Yay!
Good job! You're awesome.
You won Great Western Trail.
Jeremy Scrodla.
It's a great game. Congratulations.
So yeah, hopefully in the future contests will actually have ended by the time we record. But we're recording early on Thursday for like the third Thursday in a row. Actually, that's kind of nuts. But yeah, so congratulations and thanks to Stronghold Games for sponsoring that contest. Well, I think that's enough show business.
All right. Let's talk about some games. Games.
Yeah.
That's what this is about.
So you've got one that you're super excited for.
I do. Oh my goodness. So I got in a play of First Class, which is a train game. It's a card-based train game, kind of. Well, not like an 18xx game, of course, but I have to admit, I hadn't thought anything about this game. It's in the US, it's being released by Z-Man, and overseas it was released by Hans im Glück Verlag, GmbH, that kind of blah, blah, blah. But this is a game about building out your trains and setting a route for them. So players get their own little train area, and you set up this grid of cards that have actions on them in the center of the table. And you just take turns basically drafting a card. You get a card, you take the action on the card and you tuck it away. So maybe an action is adding on another car to your train. Or maybe it is moving your conductor down the train. Or maybe it's adding a route card to this little rail line that you have going up there. Or maybe you take something that's worth endgame points. There's a lot going on. And for a game that is so simple mechanically, those cards just really add so much. And so you're going to build out this train going off to the right, 2 trains going off to the right. And at the end of the game, you only will score for the train cars that the conductor has passed as it goes down to the right. And there are ways that you can upgrade train cars, but there are rules like you can get all the way up to a number 12 train car, but you can't have a higher train car to the right. So you can't have a 2, 4, 8. It has to go 8, 4, 2. And so the order you upgrade these train cars becomes important. And of course, there are cards that let you upgrade train cars in specific patterns, things like that. And then you've got these rail lines up above where you're putting down route cards. And similarly, there are cards that let you move your train down it. And when you hit certain markers on these different cards, you get points or you get a special benefit or you get a special action and that kind of thing. So you kind of have both of those things going on. Meanwhile, there are passengers that can boost your car's points at the end of the game and things like that. I don't know when I've been so tickled by a game in a first play in a long, long time.
Yeah.
We're talking under 90 minutes. I mean, with the learning, we played a 3-player game in 90 minutes. All 3 of us took totally separate strategies. We played totally differently. I was building out I was upgrading my cars. I was trying to get really high point cars on my train. Somebody else just blitzed it and went for because if you get 10 cars, you're done with that train, and then, you know, they're worth power points down there. They went that long train system, and somebody else was working the rail route and trying to really go extend there and get like high powered bonus point cards up there. And the scores were like 5 points apart.
Oh, nice.
At the end of the game. So really tight scoring. It played so quickly. The mechanisms are super simple. And this is a modular game. So in the box, there are like 6 different extensions, and you play with you play with 2 extensions per game. That's the rules. You have 6 in the box, but you only ever play with 2 in a single game, and you can mix and match them. So we played with the recommended basic ones where you add these passengers and these mail things that let you get bonus points, but they actually have like a murder mystery unit that you can add to it with like investigation tokens and things like that. For a simple game that was so quick and fast to play, it just felt meaty and rewarding.
Interesting.
I love this game. I wanted to play it again right away, but it was too late to start another game. So that is First Class in the US from Z-Man. And honestly, for that mid-weight Euro, it is one of the most satisfying lighter mid-weight Euros I've played in a long time.
Well, yeah, you messaged me afterwards and you were like, oh my God, this game is amazing.
Yes.
So I will definitely check that out because that sounds good.
Yeah.
I do like my midweight Euros.
Absolutely. And I think it's one that Alex will like.
Yeah.
There you go.
In a couple months.
Yeah, exactly.
At some point. So I got to play Fuse from Renegade Games, which I think that was a Gen Con release, and it took me this long to finally get to the table. I actually played it a couple times over several weeks. I just didn't mention it last week. And this is an interesting real-time speed game. It's cooperative, and you're basically trying to, I guess, defuse a bomb is the underlying premise. And to do that, you are trying to complete these objective cards, and you kind of have a stack of them, and you deal out 2 to every player. Some of them are easier, some of them are harder. And then there's a bag of dice. They're all regular D6s, 1 through 6, and there's like red, yellow, green, black, and blue, I believe. And you take out 1 die from a bag, randomly, per player. You roll those, and you have to everyone has to draft one of the dice. Like I said, it's real time, but you want some amount of cooperation where you're saying, oh, I need this particular blue, or I need this 3, because you're going to place them on your cards. So certain cards are going to have some requirements like put a red die here, a green die here, a yellow die here. Others might want a specific number. Others, you may have to stack them in a certain order. So maybe it needs a red die, and then it needs a 2, and then it needs like a black or green die. Mm-hmm. And so there's lots of different things. There's things like these 2 dice have to add up and equal this number, or equal this die rather, or they have to be less than this die, or there's a lot of different things. It was really interesting. So the first game I played 2 weeks ago, we won. Just barely. We had like 8 seconds left because you have 10 minutes to play. Mm-hmm. And it's fast, it's furious. It's not super stressful like some real-time games can be, but it was just stressful enough. The second 2 games, we played actually Alex's last night of gaming at Empire. So Sunday night before he left, which was, he left Wednesday. So Sunday night, Raquel and I went out to get a couple drinks. Then we went over to Empire for last gaming at Empire. And this was one of the games we played. And we lost both of our games. And I think that's the common trend. You'll win your first game of Fuse so you can get hooked, and then you'll just keep losing from there on out. But it was fun. Both it was Alex's first play, Raquel's first play, and they both liked it a lot. So it's a very good, quick, real-time game that's just thinky enough and not too stressful. So I really liked it. It's designed by Kane Klenko, and it's just fantastic. So that's Fuse.
Yeah, I agree. I've had Fuse for a while. I don't know when or where I got it, to be honest. I've had it for a long time, and I've actually played it a bunch. My work game group especially loves this one, and I agree with everything you said. It's there's something to it that makes it more than just this like scattershot speed game. And anybody who knows me knows I'm not typically a cooperative fan, and if Patrick Hillier is living, like he was saying, like everybody always has to say they're not a cooperative fan, but I say that because to highlight the fact that I do like Fuse, and that's even though it's a cooperative game, I do really enjoy it. I think that speed element adds something to it. And the way that you're all working on your very individual thing in front of you to give you a focus and to feel like you're accomplishing something, it does click. And, also the fact that it's so quick. You know, it's a timed game. You know how long you're going to be there. You can play a couple rounds of it and then you're done. And you're not kind of trapped in an Eldritch Horror 5-hour marathon that you didn't ever want to get into in the first place. So yeah,
with
I
the
like
5 expansions. Yeah.
And I got this special promo die from the Renegade Santa's Helpers that they did like this promo box for Christmas. You could buy at your store.
I have that. Oh, I forgot there's one in there.
Yeah, there's a clear die in there, and it is the coolest thing. So you got to try it with that.
Okay, I will do that.
There you go. Well, next on my list is Kanagawa, which came out from Yellow, and a lot of people kind of jumped on it because it is gorgeous. The box is stunning, and the components are amazing, and the art is just beautiful. So this is a Bruno Cathala and Charles Chevalier game, and I wasn't quite sure what to expect when I went into it, because other than it being gorgeous, I didn't know much about it. But ultimately, you are trying to paint these beautiful murals, and each card has different mural elements, whether it's animals or pagodas or trees and things like this. But how do you paint a mural without paint, right? So cards also provide paint colors, right, that you can collect. And you have to have brushes to paint a mural with your paint, right? So then you also have brushes that you have to collect. So you get these cards and you have to choose how you're going to use them. So they're basically multi-use cards, which is one of my favorite mechanisms. So these cards get laid out on a grid, and they get laid out, and then whoever's first player gets first right of refusal. And you can say pass, or you can take cards. Now, so if that perfect card comes out, you can take it, but then you're done, and you're only going to get that one card. And then after everybody's either taken or passed, if it, until everybody's taken a card, you keep going. So then the next, more cards are laid out. Now, if somebody takes it, they can take 2 cards instead of just the 1. And it goes up until you can get actually up to 3 different cards in a single pass to add, which I really like. I really like that kind of, I don't know, you probably have a term for it. It's an open draft, but it's a Winchester draft, but it's...
Is it Rochester?
Rochester draft, but it's laddering. I don't know how to... Come up with a term.
Okay.
You'll figure it out. But I really like that draft. I thought it was really, really fun and definitely one of the more compelling pieces. And then having to make the choice about how you're going to use these cards, whether you need them for the color or you need them for the features to get like set collection going on. I liked it. I liked it a lot. It was beautiful. It was quick. It was engaging. My biggest complaint about the game was it felt fiddly because you're tucking these cards on different sides of your little player board depending on how you're using them. And for me personally, just on a slippery table, they were shifting around a lot. And because the art's so beautiful, you want it to align beautifully for you. So I felt more compelled to like tidy a lot. So a little fiddly, but I really liked it. So I'm looking forward to playing again. That's Kanagawa, released by Yellow.
And the art is beautiful. I mean, it's like that Japanese watercolor style art, right?
It is stunning. And the paintbrushes are actually these wooden paint pots. They're actually little... I don't even know how to explain it. They look like little paint pots. They're these little jars, and they even have like a paintbrush stick sticking out of the top of them to mark your paint, which paints you're using on your tableau. It's the components. And the board, the drafting board you lay out, it's like this rollable like bamboo mat.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's really
Very
cool. Yeah.
So continuing Alex's final night, I said, okay, you know what, Alex? It's your final night. I know my mantra is we need new plays, but you don't need any new plays. So whatever you want to play, we can play. I did suggest Hero Realms because I am jonesing for Hero Realms. I am loving Hero Realms. But he was like, yeah, I'm not that interested. I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to do? And he said, well, let's do Oceanos, which is a game I talked about last week. And I talked about how I was sure he would love it. It's a Bruno Cathala game and one of his favorite designers. And I was like, all right, fine, let's bring it out. And not to say that I wasn't interested in playing it because I did really enjoy my last play. So again, 3 players. And I'm not going to go too much into how it's played. You can go back and listen to last week's episode. But basically, there is some card selection. You're building a tableau. There's some set collection of these different animals. And there's some points for building your tableau where you're putting together a coral reef and some other things. Really enjoyed it at 4 players. Plays up to 5. At 3 players, it was miserable. Absolutely miserable. So the box says 2 to 5. Don't play it at 3. Probably don't play it at 2, I'm guessing. The problem was that in 3 players, you have fewer turns because basically you're taking actions on everyone else's turn. And so by playing less cards, you're able to upgrade your submarine less, which gives you less abilities to do. You're seeing fewer cards, you're able to do less, and there was one round where Alex couldn't do anything. And it was just brutal. None of us enjoyed it at 3. If I had played it only at 3, I would have said this game was garbage. Mm-hmm. And I never would have tried again. So I'm really glad I played at 4. And it's incredible how big a difference 3 to 4 made it. And I bet you at 5 it's probably fantastic and you're doing all kinds of crazy stuff upgrading your submarine. But my mind is blown how much I hated this game at 3.
Wow.
Whereas I really enjoyed it last week at 4.
Yeah, I listened to the show.
Yeah. So, have you played Oceanos yet?
I haven't. And, it's interesting to hear you really delineate the difference between 3 and 4 player experience, because I personally, and people I've talked to and stuff, I've heard pretty mixed reviews. And so I haven't been necessarily rushing out to try it. But hearing you kind of break it down between the player count, maybe that's come into play in the negative feedback I've heard from it. So I know now if I'm going to try it, I know to up the player count on it. That's a good tip. Yeah.
I am still excited to try it at 5 because I think 5 is where it probably really shines. And it's quick enough. It's a light enough game. It's that family weight game. But yeah, stay away from it at 3 at all costs. So that's Oceanos, also from Yellow.
Go Yellow. They do beautiful games at the least, right?
Yeah. But just put the right player count in your box. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I'll wrap up with a game called Avenue from Aporta Games, which isn't necessarily a really well-known publisher in the U.S. yet, but they did a game called Doodle City that I'm fond of. It's this great little roll and write game, and which is absolutely one of my all-time favorite types of games. And then they did the game Automania, which is a worker placement game about automobiles and things like that got a little bit of buzz last year and was really cool. Well, this year I think this could be Aporta's breakout year because you played Capital Lux, right?
Yeah. And played it, reviewed it, and made my top 10 list of the year, my number 5, right. I think.
And I love it. That's Aporta, right?
Yeah.
And then along with Capital Lux, they released Avenue. And this is what I call a roll and write game, essentially, but it uses cards instead of dice. And so every player gets this little score sheet, and it's a pre-printed grid, and it has the squares have either grapes in them, either little bundles of purple grapes or green grapes or a mix. And then there are 6 little cities, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I can't count. Scattered around. And then there's a purple castle and a green castle in the corners. And basically what's going to happen is you have cards that represent the cities. There's 6 city cards. And then you have cards that represent different paths that you can draw on this score sheet. So maybe maybe you draw a curve that goes from the top to the left, or maybe you have one from that goes straight up and down or straight horizontal, whatever. And some of them are gold and some of them are gray. So first up, you're going to flip over a card that represents the city that will score this round. And then, so you want to connect grapes. You want to draw paths that connect grapes to this city. And then you're going to start flipping over path cards. And some of them are gray, like I said, they're 2 different colors. When 4 gold cards are come up, then you're done drawing paths for that round and you score. So you never quite know how long you get to go. You know at the minimum you're going to get 4, but maybe you'll get 4, maybe you'll get 12. You don't know. And so you're just drawing, card by card, you're drawing in these squares, trying to connect a path through different features back to the city that's going to score. But you also have to keep in mind a different city is going to score next round. And the city, the first city that comes up is done for the turn. So you have to keep that in mind. And then at the end of the game, you get bonus points for every purple grape that's connected to the purple castle and every green grape that you manage to connect to the green castle. So all that tied together, it somehow is just really fun, really light, but really surprisingly thoughtful. You really have to think about keeping your options open, because ultimately the biggest twist that I think really sells Avenue and sets it apart is that each subsequent city you score must be higher than your previous score. So if I score 5 points in round 1 and I score 3 points in round 2, I don't get any of those points. And you have to mark an X, and you actually get negative points for every X you have. It's brutal. And that knowing that you kind of have to pace yourself or so smartly plan your route that it will extend what you previously built on to guarantee it's higher, that adds just enough depth to make it really compelling. And yet it's still very light and mechanically simple. It is so much fun. It is so engaging. Avenue is absolutely one of my favorites in this category of game. And people who know me from online or things like that, they'll know I play a lot of this type of game, and Avenue is one of the best.
Yeah, no, it looks really interesting. I'm interested in checking that out too. And Aporta, they get, a pretty good benefit of the doubt from me after Capital Lux.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they deserve it. That game's amazing. Well, did you play anything else?
Yeah, so we finished the night, Alex's last night, with a game of Elysium. So I said, what do you want to play? You pick. Scythe was mentioned, although we don't really like Scythe, the 3 players. But ultimately said, you know what, let's do Elysium. I haven't played it in a while, he said. And so I said, okay, sure. And I've played it quite a bit. I love Elysium. I gave it a 6. Alex originally gave it a 6, and our Dukes Double-Take, he gave it a 5. But he's also like, yeah, maybe it should have stayed a 6. This is a game that we both absolutely love. You have a Rochester-style draft, a bunch of these different Greek god cards, and you are drafting them to put in your domain where they have special abilities that you can use. But eventually, you have to transfer them from your domain to your Elysium so that you can score points. And it's kind of a rummy-style set collection where you're trying to get 1, 2, 3 of a suit, and then you're trying to get a bunch of 2s, a bunch of 3s, and things like that. And we've talked about this quite a bit on the show, Double Take in our review. But I still love the game. I love the game, even though I got trashed. This was probably the worst performance I have had in this game ever. My score was almost doubled. And I can't even tell you what I was doing wrong. I've usually done pretty well at this game. I think part of it was that I wasn't collecting any families, any of like the 1, 2, 3 of a suit. I was just collecting like a couple 1s, a couple 2s, a couple 3s. And that may have had some part of it because you get bonuses if you're the first to get a family collection of 1, 2, 3. I didn't do that. So, but yeah, so it was I'm glad that was the game that he picked to kind of end the night and then end our gaming for the next couple months with, because it's a game that I love. And Raquel actually wound up winning that one by like 6 or 7 points over Alex. And then I was somewhere in the distance.
Well, that seems like a fitting farewell for sure.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, that's going to do it for what we've played. Let's head on over to the news desk. All right, so Star Wars Destiny, the dice rolling game with cards, has a new expansion. It is called the Spirit of Rebellion, and it's going to add a bunch of the Rogue One characters to the mix, but also some of your typical Star Wars characters. This adds 160 new cards. It's going to be expected sometime in the second quarter of 2017. I have still not played Destiny. I don't own any Destiny. No one's really gotten it around us here. And so, it's crazy. As much as I love Star Wars, you own some Destiny, right?
Yeah, I was trying not to. I was actively trying not to. But unfortunately, I have too many friends in this hobby. And they kept on posting pictures and talking about all their Skype plays and talking about how much fun they were having. So, yeah, I picked up a Rey and a Kylo Ren starter, and
nice.
I bought a box of boosters that should be with me soon. So darn it, I haven't even played it yet, Sean, and I'm excited about this expansion. That's how dangerous these kinds of games are for me. So
no, I'm in the same boat, and what drives me crazy is that I can't play this kind of game with my podcast schedule. I can't. Yet I still keep buying this stuff. So when like Dice Masters, I stopped with Dice Masters, but I bought a ton of Dice Masters when it first came out. Various LCGs like even now the Arkham Horror game. Mm-hmm. When Fantasy Flight comes out with Legend of the Five Rings, oh man, I'm going to be all over that. But I don't have time to play it in the way that you kind of want to play that style of lifestyle game.
True. You know? But if you want to do casual play, I think some Skype Destiny for you and me.
Okay, let's do it.
Like knock out a quick game on Skype. I think, in the middle of the week when it's not. I think we're going to have to make it happen. We have to commit to playing this game if we're going to buy it. Okay, Sean?
Okay. Deal. So have you seen Rogue One yet?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited for, I mean, again, I don't even own the game, but I like the Rogue One characters a lot.
Oh,
I hear a lot of people kind of trash talking the Rogue One characters like there was no character development and whatever. So yeah, I like this. What I did find interesting is that at the end of the Fantasy Flight press release, it used the quote, "What will you become?" What Forrest Whitaker said in the trailer that was actually never in the movie after they did the reshoots. I don't know. I just found that interesting. No big deal.
It makes you think about like how far do they plan these? Do they write these press releases and things like that? And, yeah.
All right. So Renegade Games Studios, one of the hottest publishers of 2016, and they're continuing their meteoric rise, I think. They've got a new game announced called Shiba Inu House, which is a type of dog. It's a very cute, almost
Shiba
like a fox.
Inu, yes.
They're so adorable.
They're adorable.
And they're comparing this to like their Kitty Paw and Doggy Go games. Kitty Paw I've played, talked about on the podcast. Is Doggy Go just the same thing, but with dogs? Do you know?
Yeah. Doggy Go is very, very similar. Kitty Paw has that thing where you're kind of trying to find the tiles that you need, right? And Doggy Go doesn't have that. Doggy Go, you get your own set of tiles in front of you, and it's just more of a speed game. And then it has a circus theme, and so similar to the little box that you get for Kitty Paw, there's a circus stand and like a hoop and things like that you have to arrange with the dogs as well. And it's adorable.
They're dog acrobats, right?
They are dog acrobats. Yes, they are.
That's a very untapped theme.
Right? And, I am such a fan. So Kitty Paw, Doggy Go, and Shiba Inu House are from the designer Aza Chen out of Taiwan. And he is just one of these designers. I've followed him for years. I've gone to extreme lengths to import his games. So I actually already own Shiba Inu House.
Oh.
Because I got it a year ago from his Taiwan release. And it is delightful. It is very much in keeping with Kitty Paw and Doggy Go. It's card based instead of like these little hex tile base, where you have you are kind of racing to build the right houses, the right puppy houses for your little dogs. And these cards have roofs on the bottom and then various kinds of halves to the dog houses on the sides. So when you put these cards side by side in an offset grid, you're going to get these perfect little doggy houses with a roof on them. And it's adorable. It's colorful. But this one is similar, depending on how your brain works. There's a little bit of a puzzly element to it where you've got these gold cards and you have to figure out which of these cards you have to take to align so that they match the picture perfectly with the different colors and patterns and things like that. So there is that puzzly element to it. If you like that kind of thing, or if you just need like the cutest dang game, it's going to be a good one. I'm excited that Renegade picked that up.
Cool. And that's going to be coming out in March, it sounds like. So
yeah.
Go check that out. All right. Well, I guess.
Are you okay? You look.
Yeah. No. We should. Nothing. That's fine. Let's move on. Let's talk about. Are
you sure?
Kickstarter.
What's going on?
Yeah. No. I mean, it's great. Everything's so. I love that you're here. And like I said before, there's no one else I'd want here. But I still miss Alex. I still miss my buddy. And so it's just, I'll be fine. I just need to kind of push through this.
Like, we can edit this out. I mean, like, we can just pause, and if you need to, like, I get it, man. I get it. I love Alex, too.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Like, I know you love, like, we're great friends. So I wish I could do something.
Well, it's what it is.
Yeah.
It's the first week of many, and I just need to get over it.
So, Sean, are you going
to move on?
You can edit, right? You can edit this out.
Yeah.
So, Sean, I don't really tell anybody this, but I really feel bad.
Okay.
So I sometimes just can get, let's just say, lucky. And I think if you're game and we try something, we might be able to have a little bit of Alex back if you're game.
Okay.
Just go with me here. So if
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because I mean, you look so sad, and I feel so bad for you. So, all right, here's the deal. You know what the magic words are going to be, right?
Alakazam?
No. It's Alex. So
Oh.
with me 3 times.
Oh, baseball highlights.
Of course.
Oh.
All right, so 3 times you got to say it with me together, okay? We'll
Okay.
go 1, 2, 3, and then you got to say the magic words with me, and let's see what happens, okay?
Let's do it.
You ready?
I'm game. Yep, let's do it.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Baseball highlights.
Baseball highlights.
Baseball highlights.
First mention.
My favorite game of all time, Baseball Highlights 2045. First mentioned video.
You know what else has a great solo mode? Baseball Highlights 2045. First mention.
Good job.
Just squeeze that one in there. Yeah.
So.
Baseball Highlights 2045. First mention.
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 Well, that was weird. That's not quite what I expected, Suzanne, but I guess thanks for making that happen.
Hey, beggars and choosers, man. Jeez Louise.
So tell you what, listeners out there, if you go to Twitter and you tweet the timestamp of when First Mention appeared on the show, I'm going to send you 4 Dukes of Dice coasters for you to use. For our patrons, because you're going to get a day early, don't go to Twitter. Just send me a message on Slack with the timestamp. And so I'll send 4 to a patron, and I'll send 4 to another listener. And so send me the timestamp of when First Mention was first mentioned. Thank you for your magical help there, Suzanne.
Yeah. Just don't tell anybody, okay? Don't tell anybody.
Okay.
I can do that. It's important that nobody else knows, ever. Okay.
Yeah, this is edited out, so don't worry about it. It's all good.
Okay, phew.
Hey, hey, let's finish up the news.
All right.
So, usually we talk about a Kickstarter here, but instead of Kickstarter, we're talking about Indiegogo because the Dice Tower Season 13 is currently up, and it ends 20 days from when we're recording this, which is somewhere around January 31st. It's really weird how Indiegogo has its deadline set up. It doesn't actually tell you the date and time like Kickstarter does, unless you really, really go looking for it. Yeah, if you want to help support the Dice Tower, which of course we're part of the Dice Tower network, not to say that we see any part of this, but you can go do that. It ranges from $10, I think, up to $250. There's tons of promos for some amazing games. What are some of the games that you can get promos for?
Yeah, the list of games is pretty impressive. One of my favorites, Onitama, Roll for the Galaxy, Clank, Camel Up. I mean, that's good stuff.
So there's also stuff for Millennium Blades, Scythe, Star Realms, tons of stuff. There's also Dice Tower Dice you can get, Dice Tower Dice Towers, playmats, and lots of stuff. So if you want to go help support the Dice Tower, definitely recommend checking that out. They put out an insane amount of content. Do you know how many videos they have up on their channel right now? Total?
A lot. I don't know. It's definitely in the thousands.
Yeah, it's 7,800 or something like that.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Holy cow.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. So they've currently raised about $190,000. And, this goes for several people's full-time salary. If they get to $250,000, they're going to open up Dice Tower headquarters. So they're actually going to move the Dice Tower out of Tom's house, and they're going to have an office. And that sounds really cool. That sounds pretty neat.
Yeah, I'd love for them to hit that goal. I think that they could do a lot with kind of a dedicated production space that they could all work in together.
Man.
That would be super cool.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So go over to Indiegogo to check it out. We'll have the link there in the show notes, but that's going to do it for our Kickstarter / Indiegogo, and that's going to do it for the news. Hey everybody, the Dukes have a brand new sponsor, the fine folks over at Arcane Wonders. Arcane Wonders publishes the Mage Wars games, including Mage Wars Arena and Mage Wars Academy. Mage Wars Arena combines the best of tactical card play and tactical miniature play. You'll summon mighty creatures to do battle in your name, cast powerful spells to attack your foe, and thwart their every plan and strategy. You'll use hidden enchantments to turn the tables and rule the day. Adorn yourself with mighty weapons, armor, and arcane artifacts. All of this and more await you in Mage Wars Arena. Arena is fully expandable and includes a ton of expansions to let you customize how you want to play the game. Mage Wars Academy is a streamlined and boardless version of Mage Wars Arena. It's designed to be faster playing and more portable than its big brother. Arcane Wonders is already cranking out the expansions for this one as well. So be sure to check out Mage Wars Arena and Mage Wars Academy and all of Arcane Wonders' awesome titles at arcanewonders.com.
All right, this week, the Dukes gather resources, build up their villages, and try to attract the bravest heroes to make their duchy the capital of Valeria. It's Villages of Valeria.
Villages of Valeria is an action selection card game designed by Rick Holtzgraf and Isaias Vallejo, with art by Mihailo Dmitrievsky, and published by Daily Magic Games. In Villages of Valeria, players are dukes and duchesses trying to build up the village around their castle to gain prominence and have their domain become the capital of Valeria. To do so, the players will collect points by erecting buildings, recruiting followers, and amassing gold.
Every player starts with a castle, 3 gold, and a hand of 6 building cards. Laid out on the table is a row of 5 building cards and a row of 5 hero cards, decks for both types, and excess gold.
Before beginning the game, everyone will choose a card from their hand to place under their castle with one of the 4 available resources showing: food, wood, stone, or magic.
In turn order, a player will choose one action from 5 different available actions: harvest, develop, build, recruit, or tax. After the main player completes this action, in turn order, the other players have the option of following. This lets them take a lesser version of the action on the main player's turn.
So let's talk about the actions. The harvest action lets the main player draw 3 building cards from the face-up stacks or blind from the top of the deck. Followers will draw just 1 building card.
The develop action allows the main player to discard 1 card from their hand to the face-up building stacks in order to place another card from their hand under their castle to add to their available resources. Followers can do the same, but they have to discard 2 cards.
The build action allows a player to place a building from their hand into play after paying the resource cost. This is done by allocating gold from your castle onto the resources you've already developed, or possibly on other people's resources. At the start of each of your turns, you'll replenish your gold by moving them from your resources back to your castle, including gold that other players have placed on your resources. The leading player then draws a building card. Followers can build, but without the card draw.
When a player plays a building, it may have some effect. For example, it may give the player an immediate draw or gold. It may also give an ongoing bonus in the future when a player takes certain actions. For example, it might give the player a free wood resource during the building phase, or give the player extra card draws during other phases. Buildings may also be worth some points and will have a building type: holy, worker, soldier, and shadow.
The recruit action allows a player to take one of the heroes in the hero row by paying 1 gold. Each hero has a certain number of building type prerequisites that a player must have in their village before they can be recruited. A follower can recruit by paying 2 gold instead. Heroes have their own special abilities similar to the buildings.
And finally, the taxation action allows the main player to collect 1 gold from the bank and draw 1 card. But the followers only get to draw a card. They don't get any gold.
The game end is triggered when a single player has collected a certain number of buildings and heroes depending on player count. Players will then add up all the points on buildings, heroes, any bonus abilities, and gold on their castle. Most points is the winner, and that is how you play Villages of Valeria. So, Suzanne, what do you think of Villages of Valeria? Or we can call it VOV or VOV. Probably neither of those things.
Yeah. Let's go with the Villages of Valeria.
Okay.
Okay. Phew. You know what? Well, there's a lot going for Villages of Valeria. First of all, previous to this game, there was Card Kingdoms of Valeria, which was a very different mechanically game, but it was a pretty big hit when it came out. So you kind of had like that good feeling going into it. I was excited for Villages of Valeria because it uses one of my favorite mechanisms, which is multi-use cards, right? Because you have those cards that are the buildings, but you can use them as a building, or you can use them as a resource. And that tension between, oh man, I really need this resource, but I really want that building. Every game I've played of it, I always run into multiple moments where I'm kind of stressing out about, a couple of cards in my hand. And I love that. I love that kind of stress. So I really, really like that about Villages of Valeria. I think overall, like, all the pieces really work together. I like the heroes. I like the way the building types are prerequisites for heroes. I think that that's a nice little element that makes you plan ahead a little bit more and really pay attention to what you're taking on the table. And I think a really subtle thing that is an element that adds a surprising amount to the game is the fact that when you discard a card, it's not going to a discard pile. You pick which open market pile these discards go to. So you can be pretty strategic about covering up a card you think your opponent wants, or stacking cards because you're going to harvest later and you want to pull all these cards at once and protect some of them and things like that. That is a very clever little element to the game that kind of up levels it for me.
Yeah. And so I did a first impressions review of on YouTube of this. And one of the things that I noted was this is similar to two games that I absolutely love. Race for the Galaxy and Glory to Rome. It's like Glory to Rome in that you have, someone's choosing action and then everyone can choose to follow. There's a bit of that tableau building of Race for the Galaxy with the different phases and being able to get different bonuses in different phases. And so two games, again, that are two of my absolute favorites. And this feels like both of them, though it's a little bit more streamlined. It's a little bit more accessible. Because of that, I don't like it as much of either of those two, but that's okay because that's a high bar. And I think for me, I get enough of depth in this game, and it's much more accessible and easier to teach than either of those games are. So I feel like I have a lot more situations where I could bring this out to the table, which is why I think that this will have a good place in my collection along with those other games. But yeah, I really do enjoy this quite a bit. Putting those comparisons aside, I think there are some interesting decisions, interesting tensions. I love discarding and hoping that card I discarded is going to stay there.
Yeah,
I yelled at someone last night for taking my card. Like, I was just storing it there. How dare you? So I like that. I like that there is a strong engine building mechanic in this, that you're trying to play these cards out with abilities that now when you take a build action, you're going to get to draw an extra card, or you're going to get an extra resource, or any number of things, so that each time you take an action, it's much more powerful than the base action, and you're trying to get those incremental advantages to be able to score more points than your opponent. Did you have a chance to go through the rulebook?
Yeah, I did. I think it's okay. I think it's good. It's not great. It's a simple game, really. Yeah. So, you're not asking too much of a rule book, I think, and you can definitely easily learn the game from a quick read. I mean, it's only a few pages. It's a small book, and it's only a few pages long, so it's super quick to go through the rule book. And half of the rule book is really reference to some of the special abilities on the different buildings. That said, I think if it had a little more like graphic differentiation, like some of your favorite elements to rule books, like boxes to highlight certain things, I think it would have benefited from a little extra graphic design in the rule book, but it's perfectly functional.
Yeah, I think so. It was a lot of black text on white background with some examples and some pictures. But yeah, I agree. I'd like to see maybe just a little bit more, but for what it is, I think it was probably fine.
Yeah.
So I don't have it yet because it's actually going to be available for retail, I think, around the time this episode drops. I think possibly the day after. So it was a Kickstarter fulfillment. You're holding up your copy now for all the listeners to see. This isn't actually a game I own yet, but it's a game, so kind of spoiler to my final rating at least, I'm going to buy this. But I had or my buddy Matt, who let me borrow it, he just had the basic Kickstarter, I believe. I don't know what you had access to.
Yeah, I got the full Kickstarter, and one thing I will say is that I've played it 4 times now, and I really desperately wanted to get a solo play in because it has very specific solo rules and an extra, there's an extra card and everything for solo play, and I didn't manage to squeak in a game, so I'm bummed about that. But my Kickstarter copy also includes a couple of optional kind of expansion modules, like monuments and things like that and events
Yes.
that add a totally different element to gameplay. Now, I know a couple of people that have played a couple of the modules, and some like them and some don't, whatever, but I have not played with the modules yet. But it's kind of cool that the game already has that, expanded element to it.
So I played with the events. The events were the only thing that Matt had in his copy. And I think there's 10 or 12 events, and you take 4 of them randomly. You shuffle them in to the bottom portion of the deck. There's going to be 12 cards on top before you even have a chance of seeing an event. And some of them were just everyone loses a card, or the person with the fewest cards draws a card. From what I saw, there wasn't anything crazy. Certainly it could be annoying, like if, one person's losing a gold. For me, they didn't necessarily add that much, or they weren't super frustrating to me. Although I only played with the events once. But yeah, I thought, though, looking at the components, the overall card quality was pretty solid.
Yeah, that's one of the things that actually surprised me. Not because, I had any... It's just, I actually don't see cards as... Like, this is not your standard card thickness card. Like, these are really sturdy cards. Yeah. And I think that's awesome. It's nice to have such a solid thing. And then, to be honest, I don't know what the retail version is going to look like, but the Kickstarter version has this slightly larger than average box, and it's got a molded insert, and it has card dividers to separate your different kind of little decks and enhancements. It works really well. It's designed to fit sleeved cards. It's built for expansions, so there's like those little foam blocks as spacers. So I like that attention to detail in the Kickstarter version as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they're going to do at retail, because the copy that Matt has is the thinner box that won't support the sleeves.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
I'm wondering if that's going to be the retail version, or if there's going to be an option for that thicker box. Because as good as the card quality is, I'm still going to sleeve it, and so I'm
because
worried
it's you, Sean. Because it's
me. Yeah, totally. So yeah, I hope that the bigger box that supports sleeve cards is going to be present. We'll see.
Going off of the cards as we're talking about it, I also wanted to mention that the art in the game is really quite lovely.
Yes.
I think the cards do a great job of highlighting the art, and there's all sorts of different fantastical elements, whether it's dragons or skeletons or monsters, or then just even the buildings and the resources. The colors are really saturated. It's really vibrant. The art has this painterly quality to it. And as you're building up your tableau, not to stray too far into theme, but I think it helps up the experience. The art is so lovely. It's not distracting, but it enhances it. It makes it pleasant to look at.
So I am in agreement with you almost entirely. However, I don't like the faces. I like the buildings. I like the scenic stuff. But for some reason, the faces are weird to me.
Oh, that's interesting. I'll have to take a closer look, because I'm sure you're wackadoodle pants.
Well, it could be. But yeah, it wasn't so much that I was like, oh, this is terrible. But it was just like, oh, that's weird. Whereas, like you said, everything you said with like the vibrancy of the colors and everything, it looks really good.
Yeah, I'm literally looking at the cards right now in your wackadoodle pants. The faces look awesome. It's a style. It's an art style. But
I get that.
We shall just agree to disagree and shake hands in a friendly manner.
Better faces than I can draw. So.
Fair
enough. Or whatever. You also get these nice little gold tokens. They're yellow wood, and they're screen printed to kind of give it like some kind of gold coin appearance. There is a card that shows the different actions that you take, and there's a nice little castle that goes on which action that you're taking. But really, there's not a lot to this game. It's mostly just 2 decks of cards and some gold pieces.
Yeah, and I actually really I know it's a subtle thing, but they include little hinty cards, like player aid cards for everybody.
Yeah.
That really very, very clearly outline the actions as a lead and a follow. So
Correct.
You never have to look up and ask, oh, what do I get to do there? Or what, and you can also plan ahead, kind of referencing that. So it's a small thing, but it really, really helps. I will say in the Kickstarter version of the game, and it's Kickstarter, so whatever. They have that little card you mentioned where you can track your actions, kind of. Mm-hmm. I guess they needed a stretch goal or something, because in the Kickstarter edition, they include an actual chipboard version of that card. and you get this mammoth, beautiful castle piece, this castle meeple that's screen printed and everything like that. And the chipboard card, you get punch outs so that you can lay it flat and actually the castle fits into the little slots. It's lovely. It's ridiculous. It's totally unnecessary. So it's one of those things. It's kind of silly, but it's good quality, I guess.
Okay.
Kickstarter, go figure. But I think Daily Magic really knocked it out of the park with this one. From everything that you said. Like, I will say that this is definitely a light game. To me, it's a nice kind of fantasy option that levels up from San Juan a little bit. I think, San Juan is super simple. Villages of Valeria takes it to the next level. I think it all comes together in just such a beautiful package. And one of the things, in my plays of it that I thought was interesting is that, like, I played a game, the most recent game I played, we didn't use opponents' resources at all. Yeah. And we never did that because it's a pretty big price to pay to give up one of your gold coins to your opponent to get that resource. That said, in a previous game, we did it a number of times because for whatever reason, we just couldn't get our own resources out and your opponent had the one you needed. And that was fun to kind of have that interplay. I really liked it actually when it called for that because it added another decision layer to the game. That more decisions on that kind of level I think is better in my opinion. So that was really fun when you needed to do that.
And so I like that you said that one game you did this and one game you didn't. I felt like that was my experience with a bunch of different things. Every game felt very different. I had one game where I had 2 resources that I developed, and that was it. Because I was able to get a bunch of bonuses for building. I had another game where I had like 6 resources that I developed and had a ton of gold. So just there's a different way of playing this game, and I've explored every time kind of a different strategy. I had one where I was trying to do this gold denial thing, where I had a bunch of buildings that gave me gold when I built them. That didn't quite work. Like I had like 7, I had the plurality of the gold, but it wasn't enough of a denial thing, which I think is good because ultimately I don't think you want to have a stranglehold on the other players. Then it's just not fun for them. I've had other games where, I have very, very little gold. I've had games where I've had a ton of heroes. Well, I say a ton, I mean, like 4. And I've had games where I've had like none or maybe just 1. And I think that those have all been viable paths to victory. So I think that this definitely offers those viable paths to victory, or those multiple paths to victory.
Yep. If I had to, put some criticisms out there, I will say that you remember a game where somebody just got dealt in their starter hand of cards. They got a really interesting deal where they had a bunch of buildings with low costs. So they were able to blitz out a bunch of buildings quickly that had little abilities. But when you get a bunch of little abilities out at once, it kind of gives you a kickstart. Yeah. So that was a little tough because they were the winner, and it felt like once you realize that by an early turn when maybe my opponent and I had 2 buildings out, this person had 5 buildings out. You're like, ooh, we gotta. Yeah. And it really on the other hand, it was interesting because it really put the pressure on us to catch up, right? And we were trying to figure out the most efficient way to either get bigger cards with more points or blitz out as much small stuff as we could as well and things like that. So I guess it's kind of a balance there. But there's it's a card game, so there's some luck of the draw.
Well, and also those cheaper buildings are going to be worth less points. Some of them might be worth 0.
Yeah, 0 points.
Or 1. So most of them are kind of 1 or 2, and there's a handful that are 0 and a handful that are 3. And so I think that's kind of the offset there. So I had one game where I said, okay, I'm going to build this 1-0 because it gave me an immediate gold, which was going to save me a taxation action. But then I'm not going to build a single 0 or a single 1-point building and just have really all 2s and then a couple 3s to just have that density, because basically you're playing till you have a couple, certain number of cards in your tableau. But it just depends. Maybe I do have the expensive buildings, but someone is blitzing. That strategy wouldn't have worked if they were blitzing, I don't think, because I wouldn't have been able to, to finish out my tableau or come close to it. So yeah, my criticism of this is that everyone has to be on top of things. Otherwise, the game can drag to kind of a crawl. At 3 players, I didn't notice it as much, but at 4 players, it certainly. Okay, who just went? Was that your main or was that your follow? Oh yeah, no, I completed my follow. It's your turn now. So everyone almost needs to just be very vigilant of, okay, I'm taking my main action, build. This person says I follow. This person says I follow. The last person says I pass. Okay, next main.
No, I know what you're talking about because we definitely ran it. I didn't think about that one, but you're right. Now that you say it, we definitely ran into that as well.
Right. This game should go at a nice clip. I feel like that's when it's most enjoyable. And so it's kind of hard if someone's checking their phone. It's kind of hard if someone's just kind of daydreaming. Everyone kind of needs to be acutely aware of where it is, whose turn it is. Is it their main? Is it a follow? And that can make, especially at 4, I haven't played this at 5. I don't know that I specifically chose not to play this at 5. Did you play it at 5?
I played it at 3 and 4.
At 4, it started to feel a little bit too long. And I think if, as more people, play this game, they get more used to the cards and you know what you're looking for, that would probably change. And also just people being on top of it. So.
Yeah. I think that the counterpoint to that is yes, you have to be on top of it. Totally agree. Experience the same thing. But because you do have that lead and follow action, you're engaged every turn. And so when you say it needs to clip along at a good pace, I totally agree with you. And I think that the game is designed to keep it moving along at a quick pace, because if you are paying attention, things like that, you could potentially do something every turn. And I think that's great. I also think it's, another little layer of, take that to looking around and kind of figuring out what your opponent needs to do. And like, if you're torn between 2 actions, taking the action that they can't do, whether, they're low on cards and, they can't discard 2 cards to build or whatever it may be.
Right.
So there's that element to it. It does require a lot of attention, and it actually can bog down a little bit as you're trying to make those choices later in the game. But, overall, I think it clips along as well as it can because of that constant player interaction.
So I always like it when a game makes me feel clever. And I think that I get plenty of that in this. I get plenty of that from trying to build an engine, from trying to say, okay, I'm going to make it so that this one action is going to be really good for me because I have these 3 buildings with bonuses in that phase. So maybe every time I take a taxation action, I'm going to get an extra gold for this card, an extra gold for this card, and an extra 2 cards for this card. And anytime someone takes the taxation action and you just get to follow, you're like, sweet. Like, that feels good. And it feels good when you're building to maybe like a certain type of strategy. Like, I think it's a good mix of strategy and tactics. There are some heroes that award you points for endgame points for the number of certain type of building. Like the monk gives you points for every holy building you get. And there's some buildings that do the same too. And so kind of playing to those and planning out for that and saying, okay, anytime there is a holy card on the deck, I'm going to try, or on the stacks of cards, I'm going to try and pick it up as quickly as I can so I can have every type of holy card. And I think there are three copies of each card.
I don't know the distribution.
I think so. And you can't have multiples of the same card in your village.
Right.
So you always want to make sure if you are playing that strategy of, okay, I'm trying to collect all of these types of cards, you got to look out for those. Yeah. So yeah, lots of decisions in this game.
Yep. Lots of decisions, but still quick and still light.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I've enjoyed is knowing that it's an easy teach. It's kind of an intuitive rule set in a lot of ways, especially for gamers, right?
Yeah, for gamers, it's very intuitive, very quick and easy to pick up.
But there's enough depth there to make me want to keep coming back. There's enough there that I could still teach this to a baby gamer, and I'm still going to be entertained, and I'm going to still be really engaged with it.
Yeah, I think that's very, very true.
Yeah. So is this a thematic game in your mind?
Not really. I mean, it's an engine builder. It's an engine builder, and I said it earlier when we were talking about art, but I do think the art really helps kind of add a level of engagement that theme applies to a game.
Sure.
But I don't want to mix up art with theme. Right. You know what I'm talking about? So thematic, I'm going to go with really light, but I don't care because the engine building is so engaging. The multi-use cards are really, really cool. And the simultaneous play where you're always engaged. All that just clicks really well. That I don't care about the theme. I've got pretty cards to look at while I'm doing an engine builder, so I'm happy.
Yeah, I think I agree. You're not telling a story. There sometimes seems to be a thematic and mechanical connection to what a card or a hero does, but not all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't a supremely thematic game, but it's an engine builder. It's got multi-use cards. It's got main action, follow action. So that's probably going to be a game I'm going to enjoy.
So what did the guild have to say?
Absolutely nothing.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. So, and I know that's kind of given that it had just fulfilled the Kickstarter, but yeah, no, nothing on the guild.
All right. Well, we'll see if this discussion made people run to or from Villages of Valeria.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, Sean, what do you think?
Okay. So I need to give you my final thoughts and rating. Here on the Dukes of Dice, we have a 6-point rating scale. A 1 is poorly designed but playable, not necessarily fun. This game is very far away from that. A 6 is an all-time favorite, that it's a contender for the top 10. So I said before, this reminds me of Glory to Rome, which is a 6, and Race for the Galaxy, which is a 6. Those are both 6s for me. And I said it's not as good. So it's not going to be a 6. So I need to make a decision between a 4 and a 5. 4 is a good game, worth playing, just not all the time, belongs in the duchy. A 5 is a great game, will rarely turn down a play of it. So I think ultimately I'm going to settle on the 4. I think that depending on the group, I would still rather play Glory to Rome, or I'd rather play Race for the Galaxy. And I'm going to bring this out in situations where I almost want to teach some of these concepts to someone. I want to use this as a building block. Race for the Galaxy is such a brutal teach. It's so brutal. Glory to Rome is a little bit better, but not by a whole lot. So this has a specific purpose in my collection, which I think puts into that 4 category instead of a 5. So a good game, worth playing just not all the time, belongs in the duchy. So 4.
Great. Let me ask you this, Sean. Is this something that you think like Mariah would like?
She would like this more than Race for the Galaxy or Glory to Rome.
Right.
Is this something she'd want to come back and ask for? I don't think so.
But if you wanted to like get her, introduce her to these mechanisms,
Yeah.
you would go to something like this way over like a Race for the Galaxy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Well, I think we're aligned in a lot of ways on this. I really enjoy it. It has a lot of stuff that I love in it, with that engine building and those multi-use cards that I find highly entertaining. I think the game's beautiful and it just feels good to play. But I think ultimately I fall right in there with you at 4. It is a good game. It is definitely worth playing. It definitely belongs in my collection. I'm keeping my copy. I love it. I think that it'll hit, for me personally, it'll hit that spot where I played it the other night. We had played a slightly heavier game, and then we wanted, we weren't going to play like No Thanks or something super light. We wanted something a little meatier than that, but still something quick and engaging, that wasn't too taxing. And,
Sure.
and Villages of Valeria fit that spot perfectly. So that's kind of where I can envision it kind of being a last game of the night.
Okay.
Where you're not ready to play something like TikTok Woodman, but you don't want to play Terraforming Mars either. So Village of Valeria is a 4 for me. A really good game, definitely belongs in my collection.
All right, very cool. Well, that's going to do it for our review of Villages of Valeria. A 4 from me and a 4 from Suzanne.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double-Take.
All right, this week we're taking a look back at Dungeon Petz, the game we reviewed all the way back in episode 74 a year ago. It was titled Pets, Pandas, and Planning. I think we had a Takanoko double take back then, which I think would make that make sense. And at the time, both Alex and I gave this a very high 4. We both wanted to give this a 5. This is a Vlada Chvátil game from Czech Games Edition. It's a worker placement game where you're doing this interesting bidding on initiative, but it's a secret bid. You have groups of your workers, these imps, and the more you have in a group, the sooner you're going to get to place them. And what you're doing is you're raising these pets, and you're trying to have them meet certain requirements as you exhibit them, as you show them off, and then eventually you sell them to dungeon lords who are going to put them in their dungeons to ward off pesky adventurers and things like that. So when Alex and I played this, we both enjoyed it, but it might have been a little too convoluted, to use an Alexian word, like I did that there, Alexian. So where is it now? So first off, Suzanne, have you played Dungeon Petz?
I haven't. It sits like some of our guild members, right? It sits on my shelf of shame.
Uh-oh.
I'm really looking forward to playing it. I even have like promos for it and things like that I bought. Like and because I was so excited to get it to the table, and it's just kind of sat there. So I'll be interested to hear kind of your double take thoughts on it, because I want to play it.
So I said, you know what? I would really like to play the expansion. I bought the expansion like a month after the review. It's called Dark Alleys, and it sat on my shelf. I have not played the game with or without it until last night. I said, let me play it before the double take. I'm interested why I haven't gotten it back to the table. And I opened the box, I started to teach, and I realized, man, I forgot a lot of this game. Granted, it's been a year, but at the time, I played it 4 or 5 times, and I felt pretty good in the teach at the time. There are just so many little rules, so many little things that you have to remember that you're just not going to remember. This would be an excellent game if you were the type of gamer that had a play group that played like 20 games, and that was it, right? And you would keep coming back to the same ones. For those of us that have larger collections that are very cult of the new, there's a lot to remember here. And our game last night, it was 3 players. It was our buddy Lan and Matthew. We played 4 out of the 6 rounds. We didn't finish it.
Wow.
We were all, during the entire game, we're like, yeah, this is pretty good, but I'm not really having a whole lot of fun. And eventually we said, you guys just want to call it? And it was unanimous. And everyone could see that this was a good game, but it just, we weren't crazy about it. So yeah, that's a little unfortunate.
So what does that mean to your score for your double take score, Sean?
Like I said before, it was a high 4. I really wanted to give it a 5, but it's going to fall. It's going to fall to a 3. Game is okay, not exciting, will play in the right situation. And even that will play in the right situation, I don't know that there is a situation that I would want to play it. I think it's a better game, and it doesn't deserve to be a 2.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like it's a 3. There could be reasons for me to give it a 2, but it shouldn't be a 2. Just like before, it's a 4, but I want to give it a 5. So yeah, I will be getting rid of this game. We're having our Gamers Garage sale at Empire first week in February, and this will be on the auction block, so to speak.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What's the guild have to say about it?
So both Berkey said that he got this at Dice Tower Con. It sits on his shelf of shame. And then he gives me crap because I haven't played Star Wars Rebellion, which is on my shelf of shame. Jeff Epner says, yep, just like Berkey, it's on his shelf of shame, but he's heard great things about it.
So it looks like Jason Lee says, Dungeon Petz was one of my first Euros. It seemed much heavier than it really is. It was neat and thematic, but I never felt much pull to play it. The card play that it eventually boils down to just isn't that interesting. It feels either too easy or like there's nothing you can do. There's not much mitigation you can do that makes you feel clever and accomplished. In my early excitement, I bought the expansion but never played it. I have since sold it to a hopefully loving home. So it sounds like Jason's in line with you on that one.
Well, and we've got one more, our buddy Eugene Chavez. He's a local guy that comes out to our Wednesday nights. He says, my first few games of Dungeon Petz went really well. However, the last few games I've played of it have had at least one player that had a game that blocked them at every turn with no chance of catching up or mitigation. Another frustrating aspect is that there are a ton of little rules to remember. I think that I'm pretty decent at remembering rules, but I always seem to forget 1 or 2 of them. I do like how narrative the game can be, and I think it helps to pull an Alex and put a story to every action. It just hurts if that story is pure frustration. So I remember Alex playing this, and we were telling these stories about these pets, and them pooping in the cages, and our imps getting injured going to wrangle them, and it was fun, but it's super fiddly. The mitigation, there's some, but not enough. So yeah, I think I feel pretty good in keeping it at or moving it down to a 3. So we put up a poll and we had 39 people responded. Of the people that responded, 62% said they've never played Dungeon Petz. About a third of those responding said yes. And those players that played the base game, only 1 out of 24 actually has played the expansion, which seems crazy. 4% basically is what that works out to. As far as what they would give it as a score, 53% gave it a 4, 20% gave it a 3, and 20% gave it a 5. 1-2 was awarded no 6s.
Interesting.
Yeah, pretty interesting. I like these polls. I like kind of seeing that breakdown for those that don't want to put their full thoughts in there.
Well, I think I'll go into my play of it when I get it to the table a little more cautiously, and kind of just set my expectations. And it's good to hear some of the potential pitfalls so I can watch out for them. But,
Sure.
I do love CGE, and I do love what, they do with these games. And of course, thematically, it just looks hilarious and entertaining. So I'm still really looking forward to trying this one for sure.
Thematically, this game is a gem. It's just fantastic.
Awesome.
But gameplay, yeah. All right, well, that's going to do it for the Dukes Double Take of Dungeon Petz. It was originally a 4 for Alex. Who knows what it is for him now? 4 for me originally, but dropped to a 3. This week, we're discussing shared universes and board games, but first, let's have a quick word about our sponsor. Happy New Year, everyone, from the Dukes of Dice and our partners over at Tasty Minstrel Games. TMG has an insane release schedule planned for 2017, with games like Yokohama, the Amun-Ra reprint, Coliseum Emperor's Edition, Downfall, and more. But if you can't wait for some of these upcoming titles, there's of course all their recent releases, including Guilds of London, Ponzi Scheme, and of course the Feldmas favorite Oracle of Delphi. Plus they have an amazing catalog of games like Eminent Domain, Dungeon Roll, Orleans, and so many more. Truly, there is a TMG game for every type of gamer out there, and for every type of playgroup that you might participate in. So point your browser or head on over to playtmg.com to check out all their amazing titles. All right, so this week in our discussion topic, we want to talk about games that share a universe. They exist in the same world because Villages of Valeria is part of Valeria. There was the Card Kingdoms of Valeria, and there was another Valeria game coming out. And for me, at least, that offered some confusion. I thought this was an expansion to Card Kingdoms of Valeria. But there's also, I think, some benefit. There's some name recognition to being in a shared universe. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of where my thought process was going about it. It's like, well, let's talk about like some shared universes, right?
Sure.
So Valeria is the obvious one and triggered by our featured review, but I was thinking about, well, like Red Raven Games, which is one of my favorite publishers and obviously Duke's favorite as well. Mm-hmm. A lot of those games, or all of them, I don't know, are all of them set in the same universe essentially? Most of them are, a lot of them are, right?
So that's the fun, is trying to figure out if they are. But go ahead, go on.
Right, because like what timeline, right, they're in, or but obviously, like, the best example is Above and Below and Islebound are most definitely set in the same world. Right. And then we know Near and Far is actually more of the sequel game to Above and Below, also set into that world. And, what I like about it, at least in that specific case, or for example, in a much smaller game, or much more the Onirim games, the Oniverse games by that come out from Z-Man, these little solo play games like Onirim and Nautilian and Castellian. These are all set in the same world too. And what I like about one element I like about these games, both between the Oniverse and the Red Raven universe, is that they have a feel to them, and it may be subtle, it may be more overt, like in the Red Raven games, but if it's done well, you feel like you're in a universe. It's all tied together, certainly by a similar art style and look and feel. But I like that, because if you like the game and you go back to that place, there's something that feels familiar about it already, that makes you feel comfortable and kind of sets an affinity. If you like the previous game and if something feels familiar, you can feel that affinity again. And also, I think that if you do the storytelling well, however deep or light the storytelling is, you can narratively subtly build on it as you go, and ultimately, eventually, you can land on some pretty compelling stories, I would imagine. So, some of the benefits to the same universe for sure.
Can we get a little crazy? I want to get a little crazy. Can we get crazy?
Woo! Let's do it.
All right. So I like finding connections even where there may not necessarily be connections. Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
I can see your brain working that way for sure.
So do you know about the Tommy Westfall theory from St. Elsewhere?
No.
Okay, so there's the show in the 80s, St. Elsewhere, and basically the entirety of the show turned out to be, spoiler alert.
For St. Elsewhere. I think that statute of limitations has expired.
Yeah, the dream of this like young autistic boy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it had characters that linked to other shows that then had characters that linked to other shows that you could basically tie most TV shows all in the same universe. So like Breaking Bad, anything with Richard Belzer, like any of the like Law and Orders, and then he was in Arrested Development, and like so all of these things link together. So that's crazy. There's another theory, the crack.com, they did this on one of their after hours videos. All of the Joss Whedon shows and movies are linked. Have you heard this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're talking even Marvel, right? Even the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Buffy, Cabin in the Woods, the horror movie, Dollhouse, Firefly, all linked. I'll put a link because it's a hilarious video and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's not really the case, but it's fun to think it is.
Yeah. Have you seen the Disney one?
Yes. Or the Pixar, right? Or is it Disney?
The Pixar movies, well, yeah, Pixar, I think there's one for Pixar and there's one for Disney. Certainly the Pixar one I know you're talking about, but like the Disney one is like the theory that, spoiler alert, I don't know.
Yeah.
Where like Anna and Elsa from Frozen, their parents had the ship crash.
Yes.
Those are the parents of Tarzan.
Yes.
That their ship crashed and then they shipwrecked on an island and survived and then they became so Tarzan and Anna and Elsa are all siblings, and then Rapunzel is all this other stuff. So yeah.
And then it works for Pixar too. But what makes it even crazier is Joss Whedon wrote, was like a co-writer on Toy Story. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So where are you going with that?
Okay, where I'm going with all this is the Red Raven games, right? So you've got a bunch of them. You've got 8-Minute Empires. You've got the Ancient World. You have
City of Iron,
and then Above and Below, Near and Far, and Islebound. Because those, I think...
And Empires of the Void.
I haven't worked on Empires of the Void yet. I haven't worked that into the theory. I forgot about Empires of the Void. I own it, haven't played it. I think that 8-Minute Empires is the past, is the far past, right? Not the ancient world, which is what the title would suggest. So the empires rose up. They were these big sprawling empires. And then the Titans came, destroyed the empires, and that's what led to the ancient world. And in the ancient world, you see all of these races kind of rebuilding civilization. And then you get to Above and Below, because there's more like settling and exploration, Near and Far, Islebound, they go out to the seas. And then finally, City of Iron is kind of the industrial steampunk version of all of that. That's my theory.
I buy it. I'm in. I love that idea.
Yeah.
And I think that's just fun and it creates interesting storytelling opportunities. I love that theory. I'm going with that. I'm marking that as canon. I don't care what Ryan Lockett says. It's canon. We're done.
I like it.
But like I was thinking about this too, like Resistance and Coup.
Sure.
Are set in the same, very blatantly set in the same universe. Yeah. And then and what I like about the Red Raven games is that there's clearly distinctly storytelling elements, whereas like the Oniverse series, they're very abstract games that are really tied together by art as much as anything else. But then like, what about games like another one that's clearly set in the same world are Neuroshima Hex and 51st State, right? Most definitely in the same universe. Seasons and Lord of Zidit are actually technically in the same universe. But going off of Seasons, then there's also like the Keyflower, Cathedral games. I mean, is that a universe, or are those just like same punny title? I don't know.
Well, there's certainly a marketing value to this, right? I mean, if you already like one game and set in universe, you may have some affinity for a new game set in that universe, even if it's for some people very small. Just that, like you mentioned before, that recognition. It's kind of like that's why sequels are so big, because people like saying, oh, I've already seen Batman, so this new Batman movie is probably pretty good, you know? And so I think that there's a value in that. But I think that there's also kind of a shorthand that gets created, like a thematic shorthand, where you kind of can read in another game's theme into this shared universe game. Does that make sense?
It does, but so let me ask you this, and some of the detractors behind this idea, right? Does that become lazy? Or is that too constrictive? Like, do you think that it could lead to areas where, like, you're forcing things because you're trying to make it fit into this world that it necessarily shouldn't?
Well, I don't know. So, like, going back to your example of the Resistance and Coup. So in the Resistance, all you really see are the Resistance members, right? It's just the art for the Resistance and then some of the spies. And then you kind of see, like, these industrial targets maybe on the playmats. But that's all you're really seeing. But then you play Coup and you see the upper class of the cities. I kind of think of like Hunger Games, right? Where it's the capital and the decadence of the capital. So you see the decadence of the upper class in Coup. Now I'm bringing that back. I'm bringing back, these are the targets. These are the bad guys in the Resistance. And I kind of like that they inform one another, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Is it lazy? Yeah, I think it could be. I think it could be. But I also think there's room for, like, Easter eggs. I like when something can have an Easter egg in it, and you're like, oh, that's a reference to this other thing. And so
it's
I think,
a reward for loyalty.
Yeah, and it's like you're in a secret club. I like that too. I find that makes you feel clever, and I like that in games.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was thinking about it, I think games like the universe that you just outlined for the Red Raven games, I think that's really compelling and interesting. And I love that storytelling that isn't necessarily happening in the game, but as you're thinking about it, this rich world that allows your imagination to fill in the gaps the way you want to, that gives you a framework that lets your brain kind of take it to where it needs to go, that can enhance the gameplay experience is really, really awesome. Conversely, I think that there are games like more Euro-style games that may be set in quote-unquote the same universe, but then it does kind of feel a little bit more marketing focused. For example,
Sure.
I mean, like the Pandemic games are all set right in the same universe.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, for example, the Pandemic Contagion, you know, was that, you know, it was whether or not it fit or, you know, was what people expected or things like that. It was thematically, I can see arguments on both sides, but what does the guild have to say?
So Scott Sexton kind of has a different take on this. He said, here's the deal with having a shared universe in board games. The only time it really matters is if the storyline or the shared universe is well developed. Daily Magic's Valeria universe or Red Raven Games' Hogman universe are good examples of when it makes no difference to me. In both of those universes, the stories being told are pretty thin at best. The thing that links the games together is primarily the artwork. The stories connecting the games are non-existent. In contrast, look at FFG's Arkham Files series. FFG has a very developed backstory for the investigators and characters running around, but there's no ongoing story. Fantasy Flight treats the Arkham Files series as a setting and backstory only. I think that in the coming years, more effort will be made to tell more cohesive narratives from game to game in some series of games. I think Gloomhaven has a story successor game in the works, and there is also something like this in Artana's Legacy game. Mostly, though, you will see companies continue to play around with telling stories through campaigns or legacy games. All in all, I think I would prefer to have individual games try to tell their own story without needing to be referential to other games with the same setting. The Arkham File games work for me only because of how well the setting has been crafted. So I think that's an interesting counterpoint.
Yeah, I agree. I think I disagree, though, on his, you know, pulling Red Raven Games' Hogman universe as where it makes no difference and where there's nothing tying it together, especially in Above and Below and Islebound. I think, you know, they're very Euro-style games, but there are most definitely strong elements that pull it together, at least in my brain. Maybe it is all the art and the theme putting it together, but I love it there. And it does feel like it's a rich world building where, again, we were talking about earlier, it lets me fill in the gaps and tell the stories I want to in that universe with that universe as a framework. But I see what he's saying. I mean, I think he has a really good point. Overall, I think that he talked about Artana's Legacy game. I mean, that's like the Origins Chronicles, right? And I think that's a different category, really, in a lot of ways. Although you could argue that things like Arkham, Eldritch, or like the Sherlock Holmes, like these common domain, the public domain things, like it's more IP based to me. It's more like you're playing an IP based than having the same setting. And for some reason in my brain, there's a really subtle, soft line between those.
I can see that. And so while I appreciate the counterpoint, I know for me, I like when things are referential or self-referential. I like when, like there was in the newest, the 2009 Star Trek movie, there was a reference to the captain from Enterprise, his beagle, you know. And whenever there's that fan service, I'm always like, you know, I love that. And if a game does that, that's cool too.
Sylvain Lacroix, I must admit that I love shared universes. Valeria is a good example of 3 games with the soon-to-arrive Quest that are completely different but use the same artwork, icons, and general lore. The Ryan Lockett universe is also fantastic with special races. It's like having a good cameo in a movie. It's great. So that goes very much to what you're saying, where it's kind of rewarding that. And I also think that, you know, it's subtle, and you could argue this is just as much graphic design, but that artwork, the icons, and the general lore, certainly it can be that shortcut. And I think you alluded to that earlier, Sean, but I mean, it is a shortcut to learning a new game. And, you know, when you have a rich world where you have some, you know, disparate mechanisms, but you're using the same icons to represent the same concepts, I think that's really helpful if you've played the first game. So, you know, I like that.
And then finally, Eugene Chavez says, it's a little before my time in the hobby, but wasn't Zavendor an early attempt at a shared board game universe? Granted, the games don't have much to do with each other. However, it's notable for having Alexander Pfister's first real game, The Mines of Zavendor, and Jen Drogenmuller's Proto-Terra Mystica, The Scepter of Zavendor. Those are some deep cuts. Eugene, if nothing else, will provide you some deep cuts.
Yeah.
That's a weird phrase, but yeah. So I remember looking up Scepter of Zavendor right after I started playing Terra Mystica, and just because I loved it so much. And I'm interested in, as much a fan of Alexander Pfister I'm interested in looking at Mines of Zavendor. But I don't know much about their backstory or, you know, what that universe is like or anything.
Right. If it's just like an Oniverse, right, where there's like a world or like a Seasons and a Lord of Zidit, right?
Sure.
Where, you know, you have a universe, but it goes very much to what Sylvain was talking about with icons, artwork, and general lore. Yeah.
All right. Well, any final thoughts on shared universes, Suzanne?
I'm a fan of them, and I like it, especially when you see, game production quality is getting higher and higher. So artwork and things like that, it just creates these rich worlds that I enjoy. And certainly when I latch onto one that I like, I love revisiting it. And it is like a sequel, but it's like a good sequel, you know? I like that familiarity. Maybe that's because I'm getting old and you know, I just like change scares me. But I love shared universes, and I like it when you get different mechanisms set in the same world. I think that's fun to explore. So I'm a fan of it, and I look forward to more expansion of Valeria and Gloomhaven and things like that. All sound very exciting.
All right. Well, I agree. I like when stuff references itself. Makes me feel clever for knowing things about other things. Okay, well, before we wrap up this episode, we have our naming runners-up from the guild. So the name father, Steve O'Rourke, brought us Capital Improvement. Capital Improvement, because you got imps in Dungeon Petz and you're building up your village, so that makes sense. And then BJ from Board Game Gumbo with the aptly named Pimento 4. We had an episode with you, Suzanne, that we named Pimento 3. I won't embarrass you with the whole Pimento 3 story, but it's been referenced several times in the podcast, and you can go check that out. But this would be the sequel, Pimento 4.
Yeah, I guess is it a mark of a great friend or an awful friend that ensures your most embarrassing moments never die? I'm not sure.
Never die, and you have and you have an entire guild that is devoted to keeping that happening. So,
yo, lucky me.
Our buddy Rob Rouse from Blue Peg Pink Peg came up with one of my favorites here, Cooper Scooper. Cooper is a trade person in a village. So I'm glad he provided that, because I didn't actually know that. I've seen that term used in a bunch of Euro games, but I didn't actually know what that meant. But
I'm shocked.
Cooper,
I'm shocked that you didn't know that.
I
That just
didn't.
seems like some weird arcane thing you would know.
Yeah, didn't know it. And then continuing on the poop train was Chris Schreiber with Pootopia, which I found very clever. I like that one quite a bit too.
Sean fought hard for Pootopia, but I thought about my 5-year-old listening to this episode, and I think I would hear the words Pootopia way too much in my house if I had greenlit that one. So my apologies, Chris.
And then finally, Jason Lees with You're the Pets in Town. How does that go, Suzanne?
You're the pets in town. Nothing's ever gonna get down. Yeah, sorry,
Very
Alex.
nice.
I'm not as good of a singer as you are. I'm a real kick at karaoke, man.
So that's the top 6, but we have an honorable mention. Suzanne, you are, if nothing else, a wordsmith. And whenever you chime in with your title suggestions, you are great because you manage to include every element that we're discussing in that episode. It's not necessarily concise or clever, but it includes everything.
Yeah, concise and clever are definitely 2 words you would never associate with me at all. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. But I am very clear.
Yes.
And accurate.
So another of Chris Schreiber's suggestions is in the style of Suzanne, her naming suggestions. First episode of Alex's Hiatus with Suzanne Sheldon and a discussion of Villages of Valeria, Dungeon Petz, and reusing gaming worlds. So yes, that is a very accurate name.
I fought hard for that one. I fought hard for it, man. Dang it. Next time. I'm going, one of these days, Sean,
Yep,
mine will be the name of the episode.
We're totally gonna pick them.
By Grab Thar's Hammer.
Oh.
Oh, too soon.
Yeah.
What a bummer. That's a terrible way to end.
I want to go watch Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
Okay, so Suzanne, what's going on with you in all of your media glory? What are you doing?
Well, late in 2016, I released my top 50 games of all time video series on the Dice Towers YouTube channel. So if anybody's interested in checking out what some of my favorite games are, they're welcome to watch that. And I am also, in the very relatively near future, going to be releasing my top 50 board game apps list as well.
Very cool.
So that's exciting.
Very seldomly will Raquel and Mariah watch board game content as I'm watching it. But when I put your top 50 on, because that came out like 2 months ago or so?
About that, yeah.
Yeah. They both like sat down and watched. We watched the whole thing over like 2 days. We watched like the first 2 and then like the last 3 the next day. So yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And Kemet was in your top 10. I think it was like 8 or 9 or something.
Yeah.
I was like, yes!
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, high five. So well, thanks for watching. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, all that stuff from before, there's not another person we would have thought to bring on first because there are numerous honorary dukes, but you are a full-fledged duke, Suzanne. So
tally-ho, or I don't know, like what's a ducal thing to say? I don't know. Pip, pip, cheerio.
Well, apparently first mention. Dukes say first mention a lot. I
first
guess.
mention,
or
skinning
half
cats.
Dukes.
I feel like I needed to talk more about cat skinning. Because when you guys talked about Cottage Garden, remember Alex was skinning all the cats.
Yep.
And I found that highly disturbing. So, you know.
Yes. All right. So you got your top 50. People can find you on Board Game Breakfast.
Yep, people can find me on Board Game Breakfast. I do the weekly crowdfunding roundup there where I highlight some projects in the crowdfunding world that I'm excited about. And then they can always find me on Twitter if they dare to brave into that quagmire. I'm at 425 Suzanne over there. And I tweet a lot and it gets a little silly in that Twitter world. So, you know, have a good stiff cup of coffee before you dive in.
With a fortified cup of coffee, maybe.
Yes, indeed.
Little
Lots of shots.
Yeah. A little Kahlua, a little Jameson, whatever. Okay, well, let's wrap this thing up. I think that we are off to a fantastic start. You have set the tone. You have set the bar at a very high place. So you are the standard by which we will judge all subsequent guest hosts.
I've seen that list of guest hosts. I have no doubt that that bar will be leapt over.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so that's going to do it then for episode 126, It Takes a Village. Thanks again to Jimmy DM90 for naming the episode. Great job, Jimmy. Fantastic. So until next time, this is Sean.
And Suzanne.
And Hail Hydra, and I guess also rest in peace, Alan Rickman. Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy and in the Ducal Embassy in Seattle, Washington on January 12th, 2017. Our theme music is provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out dicetowernetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to dukesofdice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice, join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to Guild member Jeff Epner for production assistance. Thanks also to our sponsors, Arcane Wonders and Tasty Minstrel Games. Check out their awesome titles at arcanewonders.com and playtmg.com. We'll see you back here next week. Until then, as Alex would say, game on!